God's wisdom is pure. That's what James 3:17 says. And when I read that several months ago, I had to pause, like for several months, pause, and really pray on it and ponder it, because it's not that I doubt God's wisdom is pure. It absolutely is. But what you find out in the world that purports to be God's wisdom, that pretends to be God's wisdom, is far from pure. And I had to wonder, how does it go from someone reading it in the Bible to how it is heard out in the world that is not pure anymore? And after a lot of prayer, it came to me that there are three ways that God's word gets polluted, that it gets tainted, that it is no longer pure. And interestingly, they all happened in the Garden of Eden. So first we've got the serpent. He comes to Eve and he says, is that really what God's word says? Are you really gonna die if you eat this? And that is the first thing people can do, is they water down God's word. They water it down, because serpent was like, you're really not gonna die. That's not what's gonna happen. He watered God's word down, and a lot of people water down God's wisdom to where it is no longer pure. And then the second thing that people do is they add to God's wisdom. And I have actually been a victim of this, where people add so much to God's wisdom that it becomes a burden on the believer, which the whole point of Christ was freedom, but people who add to God's pure wisdom put a burden on those who follow it. And this is what Eve says. She says, yeah, God says, don't eat of it or touch it. But if you look back a chapter, what God said was don't eat it. The don't touch it part wasn't there. I don't know who added that. Did Adam add it when he was teaching Eve, or did Eve add it herself? Either way, the word was added to, which created a room for a burden and to weigh down God's pure wisdom. And then the third thing that happens is what Adam did. When God approached him, he says, well, that woman that you gave me caused me to do this. See, Adam is twisting God's word. He is even going further to say that God's pure wisdom was wrong. Because of God's pure wisdom to make him Eve, he has now fallen in sin. So it's God's fault. So I'm going to tell you, when you're out in the world and when you're telling people God's word, keep in mind that you don't water it down, that you don't add to it, and that you don't twist it. But also keep in mind, a lot of people are doing those things. So you need to know God's word so you can recognize when it's no longer pure, when it's been polluted, if it's been watered down, or if it's been added to, or if it's been twisted. Know his word, know his voice, and you won't be misled.